Is it worth spending 90,000 shell credits each week for a good increase in the eco drop rate? Hi, my name is Shadow, and today I'm bringing you the analysis of farming ecos with and without sweet and sour pork, the new food that came out with patch 1.1, with the only purpose to find out if it's actually worth or not using it, as well as when could be a perfect time to do so. Let's get into it. Sweet and sour pork is a food you can cook and consume in order to get a 50% increase in the eco drop rate, lasting for 30 minutes. There's also the cheap version of the same, which will increase the drop rate by 30%. However, in this video we're going to focus only the first one, although most of the points could be also applied to the latest. All materials can be bought from this vendor and you can see the details on the screen right now. You can only cook 5 per week, and that is due to the purchase limit this item has in the same period of time. For the analysis, I farmed the same 273 ecos with and without food, recording each single outcome, whether I was getting nothing or the drop was due to pity or not. Even though the following in theory shouldn't matter, I also farmed those in the same order. I was farming the same ecos I needed at that time, so I ended up doing that. But for real though, I was just selecting the same attribute from databank, so didn't need to try this out with different ecos each day. Moreover, in order to make a fair comparison every time, I was making sure to get an eco right before I started farming and recording my data to set the pity count at 0. With all of this already clarified, let's first check the results of 3 days of farming without food real quick. From the total amount I farmed, pity wise I should get at least 66 ecos, and I ended up getting 91 with 45 of those being pity. I must say, I was getting really lucky from time to time, since I pretty much got 50% of those outside pity. On a daily basis, the drop percentage was not having a high variation, always showing values between 30% and 33%, not bad in general to be honest. Comparing with the days I used the food, numbers wise we can appreciate a very interesting change. From the same amount of days and ecos farmed, I got 124 drops, only 25 being pity. In other words, almost 80% of my drops were not due to pity, which sounds really great. But, is it actually that impressive? We are talking about that compared to farming without food, I only got 33 more ecos in total. To farm during these 3 days, I used 6 sweet and sour pork, but I actually didn't record the whole 30 minutes of the second daily food, so we can say this is the data of 4 sweet and sour pork more or less, which is equivalent to spending 72,000 credit shells for only 33 more ecos. What do you think? Do you find it worth the investment? Let me share with you my thoughts as to when it's good to use the food and also cover how is the best way to use it. This second point is really important to min-max the resources. Suggestion number 1. Use it whenever you want to accelerate your farming for a certain piece or character in general. This is kind of straightforward. If there is a new character on future patches that you are interested in and want to get gear for them beforehand, or just want to find an upgrade for a specific character in your current roster, you can go and try out this method. But please bear in mind the following. This food won't guarantee that you will get ecos with desired main stats and perfect substats. It will only increase your chances of getting the eco with the main stat you are looking for, and from there, you will still need to pray to get some decent substats. To put an example, based on the analysis I made, the way I see it is that I just got 33 more chances of getting a 3 cost eco on Celestial Lyset with a Spectre damage bonus main stat. I know it should be less than 33 since the last eco I was recording in the data was Violet Feather Heron and that one can't be in that set, but hopefully you will get my point. Suggestion number 2. When you need to spend energy in other materials instead of tasset fields and don't want to get behind eco-wise. This is especially if you are someone that doesn't use ashtrays to recharge energy on a daily basis or frequently. Let's remember that we will get seal tubes and tuners from other sources in the game. Even though those sources are not unlimited like in tasset fields, the amount we will usually receive is decent enough to let us enhance a good amount of ecos. So, during those days, the only thing missing in the equation would be the actual ecos you need or want to enhance in that specific moment. Suggestion number 3. When you want to farm cost 3 ecos. Never use it for cost 4 ecos. The pity on those is the best, so definitely not worth investing the food on them. The cost 3, on the other hand, at least some of them are kind of hard to farm, since there are few from certain ones compared to others in the same tier, and the pity count is 4, which is mid among the 3 type of ecos. Regarding cost 1 ecos, I feel it's the best option for you to use the food since the pity count is the highest in the game. However, I actually wouldn't suggest to use this specific food on them because you will find a lot in the overworld. So, personally, I think the amount of cost 1 has more weight for me than the pity count this eco tier has, since you still have more chances to get an eco drop and the main stat options in this tier makes farming even easier. Moreover, let's remember that we still have the data merge feature in the data bank, which will give us even more ecos in general, having more success in getting a desired cost 1 eco compared to the chance of getting a useful cost 3. In case you want to boost your cost 1 farm a little bit, I suggest you use the lemon braised pork instead, which personally I'm doing whenever I have time to farm this eco tier, and let me tell you, I'm pretty satisfied with the outcome too. Now that we have reviewed when could be a good time to use the food, let me share with you some tips that can help you maximize your farming as much as possible based on what has worked for me so far. Some of the following may be obvious, but worth mentioning still. Also, please don't consider these points as a must. At the end, you can play the game the way you enjoy it more. Tip number 1. Bring your best DPS since you want to deal with the ecos as fast as you can in order to farm more ecos per food. Tip number 2. Bring someone with Inferno Rider in the team, with the only purpose of getting faster to the ecos. You may be saving some seconds in between ecos, but when adding everything up at the end, that can give you a couple of more. Tip number 3. You will notice that whenever you use the food, there will be no icon showing how much time left you have on it. So, in order for me to have a better idea in that sense, I use another food right after using sweet and sour pork. Taking advantage of this, I use a damaged one just to benefit the cost of this farming, and it goes along a little bit with tip number 1. It doesn't necessarily need to be an expensive one. For instance, the one I use is ginger stew and is pretty easy to cook. Tip number 4. Whenever you need to be AFK for whatever reason, consider putting the game in any menu. Could be the general one, characters, data bank, and so on. This will prevent the food to continue its time and you actually take full advantage of the whole 30 minutes. Tip number 5. Lower your ward level. This will help you a lot with tip number 1. Bringing your best DPS to deal with weaker ecos is the way to go, to be honest. You will save an important amount of time in the process, which, by the way, leads me to my next tip. If you are actually doing the latest, then I would highly suggest you save some time in your agenda to at least farm for an hour. You will have 12 hours before you can go back to your current SOL3 phase, so better take this chance to actually do a good farming session. I don't find it worth to do this just for 30 minutes, but again, this is a personal opinion. By doing all the previous points, you can farm around 62 ecos within 30 minutes. If you end up not wanting to use Inferno Rider, then you will farm around 56. Of course, this input can vary depending on the DPS you are using and their stats, but it's a general value so that you have an idea how many you can farm with the use of one food as long as you follow the suggestions previously mentioned. Otherwise, most likely the amount you will be able to farm will decrease per food. Now, going back to my initial question, is it worth spending 90,000 shell credits each week for a good increase in the eco drop rate? For me, to be honest, it is, considering as of today I still don't spend all my energy farming tasset fields and somehow I don't feel behind eco-wise. Also, take the following from someone that has farmed cost-free ecos in the overworld as much as the agenda allows it. It is well known that cost-free ecos are the hardest to farm for a couple of reasons, and, before this food, there were consecutive days that I wouldn't get the ones I was looking for. Well, that changed for me after I started using this food, and I feel happy that I'm able to find usable or decent cost-free ecos for my characters. If you found this content valuable, please consider liking and sharing this video since it's going to help my channel a lot. So we'll appreciate a lot your support on this and we'll talk to you in the next one. See ya!